Welcome to the Boundless Bible. My name is David Shapiro.
Hey, I'm Javi Marquez.
And I'm Jason Holloway.
Hey guys, today we're going over, listen, it only took one generation since the creation of man for man to enter murder into the world. This is the story of Cain and Abel. I am glad to be here with you guys.
Same. We are talking about one of the, in my opinion, it's one of the most interesting stories in the Bible. Cain and Abel, the first two born humans,
Yes.
according to the Bible, right?
Yeah.
We had Adam and Eve, but they were created in the beginning of this, which is what we talking about Genesis 4. Adam is with Eve and begets Cain. So the first two born humans.
Yeah, let's jump in. I mean, this is a really incredible story because everybody kind of knows that this is the story where Cain murders Abel, but let's kind of jump into who they are and why this would happen. I mean, like I said, I started with just one generation, but it really didn't take very long for man to hit rock bottom just in terms of jealousy and, man, just the most rotten thing I can think of. There's two things, there's two words in Hebrew, Yetzer Hara and Yetzer Hatov. And what this is it's a drive to bad or a drive to good. And the Midrash really talks about this a lot with Cain and Abel, where you have a drive to good or a drive to bad within you. You still have the free will, but you have a drive one way or another, and we start to see both with both of these gentlemen, with these brothers. So it's really interesting. I think it's going to be a really good conversation.
But I think that's what this story is about, right? Like, let's not jump to the end, but I mean, the story is essentially that Adam and Eve are out of the garden. This is the beginning of them being human. For the first time, they lay together, and Eve gives God the credit for the birth of Cain. She continues, by giving Abel, and then I'm going on through the story. Both of them grow up to become, one is a sheep herder, shepherd. The other one sows the land. They both give a offering to God, which we'll talk about later, and one is found acceptable, one is not. Cain's is not. Cain then has a bit of a hissy fit, and God says, "Why are you upset?" And Cain, has his response, and then he kills Abel. And then once again, God says to him, why, what did you do? What did you do? And Cain doesn't take the responsibility. He says, well, I'm not my job to deal with him. I'm not my brother's keeper. That's where that comes from. And God sets him out. God curses him and says, you're set out into the land. So, I mean, it's a super interesting story. Just for anybody who didn't know it, that's the short version. I recommend that you read the real version. It's only 15, 16 lines long in Genesis 4, but it's just absolutely jam-packed with info.
I agree.
Yeah, I could relate to, we could definitely all relate, I could say, to something like this, right? That you feel like you brought a portion, you done your part, and maybe you didn't get it recognized, or someone else got praise for it more than you did. And, you're in your feelings. You wonder why. You wonder why this person is probably better. And then that goes down through a really bad rabbit hole of, of feelings and thoughts. Now, I would like to say that I never thought about maybe eliminating somebody for being praised more than I was. But the story has a lot of depth, I think, for human condition in it and how we perceive, being happy for somebody else or even not feeling that we're worth it in some ways, right? There's a lot of stuff there with Cain and Abel.
I mean, I think that the really great story, to me, the really great part of the story is they don't give you a lot of information. You know the story, but you're to dissect it with the human nature. And again, this is now second generation. So you're dissecting very complicated human relationships very, very quickly. And when I look at it, there are things I've heard, again, mine come now from more of Jewish tradition and reading through the Torah. And one of the things they talk about is that Cain killed Abel, and it's shocking. He goes, well, Abel's dead, and why would Cain do that? And a lot of them say that, well, Cain was dead inside before he killed Abel, so this is actually the second death. The first murder was Cain murdered his inside to be able to do it. You just said that, Javi. I don't know if I'd be able to do that, but according to Jewish scholars, they go, this is the second actual murder because Cain murdered his insides first to be so hostile towards his brother. Nowhere does it say it.
But to
I
lean
can
in,
see that.
yeah, I mean, look, to lean into that, I think it does say it, guys. Look, I read this 14, 15, 16 passages over and over this week, and I think it does. I think everybody gets caught on the murder part, and they don't pay attention to what happens to it before. It's like they have these. First of all, we're doing this all backwards, but I think it's important because this is the way that people have to unravel this story. Like you start with the murder, you're like, man, what drove him to murder? Okay, so you see the murder, but now you have to ask yourself what drove him to that, and why did he do that? And so I'm looking at Genesis 4:6, and this is coming after the favor has not been given to Abel. Right, the favor has not been given, or has not been given to Cain. Yeah, he's upset about it. It says he's despondent about it. His character has fallen or something like that. You know, it's like he's definitely upset. He's frustrated. He's angry. And so he says, the Lord said to Cain, why are you furious and why do you look despondent? If you do what is right, won't you be accepted? But if you do not what is right, sin is crouching at the door. I love this line. Right. Sin is crouching at the door. Its desire for you, its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. So you're frustrated. You're angry. If you dwell in that frustration and anger, it's going to kill you. If you dwell, this is free will at its core. If you dwell in your frustration and your anger and your jealousy, again, we're going to work totally backwards. We're having like a Memento moment if you've ever seen that movie. You know, it's Javi, you're muted. But the idea is if you do what is right, won't you be accepted? And so he gave his sacrifice. So he gave his sacrifice and it was accepted. He didn't say it was unaccepted. It just, for some reason, whatever the Bible says, doesn't say it was favored. So he's upset that he didn't get the favor. So Javi said it really well. If other people are doing great stuff and they're getting these rewards and you're going, why not me? This is what Cain is going through. His sacrifice was accepted. It just wasn't quote unquote favored. And he was feeling upset about that. He was feeling, like he earned more than he got. But then it says, like I said, but if you do what is right, but if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching at your door. So you have a choice. You can either fix your despondency and look at the gifts that you have been given. You can look at the acceptance of the gift that you've given as enough, or sin is waiting at your door. It's crouching at your door. And crouching is a good word too. Like what crouches? Lions, pumas, predatory animals crouch, right? Sin is crouching at your door and it's waiting for you to give it an in, and you not giving up your despondency, you're going to let it in. And then he does. And that's what happens in the very next thing. The next line is Cain said to his brother, hey, let's go out in the field. So he gave into it. So he gave into it. So what do you guys think about that?
When you first said it, David, I was like, that's a stretch that you're dead inside before you kill somebody. But now that you guys are kind of breaking it down, I think you're right. I mean, we see that through even now, like whenever we see like a shooting or something like that. And I hate to bring it up, but there's always like what caused that person to maybe do something so drastic like this, right? What are the evidence that we see that he was very, maybe asking for help? You could see that he was, really have some kind of hatred or something like that. We see this kind of play out, and there's evidence usually for something so drastic like that. And when it comes down to Cain and Abel, we see this happen. We see the downcast. We see that he's contemplating something, and God is going, hey, I'm stopping you. I'm giving you counsel before you do anything. Understand that if you give into the sin, something terrible can happen. God is good on that sense too. He was counseling him. He was telling him beforehand. And I think God is always yelling at us. It's up to us to listen to that that scream.
And I will see real quick, David. I would even take it a step farther and say this. And this is a super side note. So if you want, skip the next 30 seconds and come back to this. But there's the side note. This is the consistency of God. He's been counseling from the he started counseling before Genesis, but he's been counseling, guard your heart, and he counsels that through the rest of the entire Bible, to the fact that even Jesus in the future is going to say, you have heard it said that murder is bad. I'm telling you that having a murderous thought is bad. It's the same thing that Jesus is saying there that it was said in Genesis 4. The consistency of God has always been your heart begins your action.
Yeah.
And so if you contain your heart, you contain your activity.
Yeah.
So anyway, all right.
Preach.
Now we jump.
Preach.
One of the things that you were talking about is the free will, and this really is. I mean, if anybody ever doubts free will, this is that moment where, it's showing it. It's masterful how they're showing we have control over our sinful impulses. But the other thing is, because they don't actually say why Cain killed Abel, and there are some people that discuss this and they argue this and they say, hey, is it a heart issue? Was it that one person wanted the other person's land? Was there a dispute over a woman, which some people say? There's all these things. And the great thing about this is all of them can be true in our human nature, and it has nothing to do with the cause, because it doesn't matter what the cause was. The reaction was what we're looking at. And going, I don't know if we're there, but going a little bit further, right afterwards, God does exactly with Cain that he does with Adam and Eve, which is in 4:9, he goes, where are you? Basically, he goes, he wants to know where Abel is. So he's going, hey, Cain, where's Abel? Just like Adam and Eve, he goes, hey, where are you after you sinned? It's the opportunity for repentance. It's the opportunity to take accountability and repent. And neither one of them did. And it's incredible because, again, this is now this, learned behavior almost of, hey, I'm just not going to take responsibility and who cares and move on. I'm not going to repent. And I think that equally, if not more, angers God.
Well, it's also just to go back a bit, people really don't want to take the responsibility of what has happened, right? And deal with the fact that maybe somebody's getting praise over you, somebody's getting favor, like in this story, over you, and they go to blame, right? Some of the stuff that I saw, like looking into it a little bit, some people are mixed, right? They're going, it's also not, you were saying, David, it hasn't been said why or like what's going on in Cain, but it's also not really being said of why God chose favor to Abel. I mean, Abel over Cain. It's not really said. It's not, I choose him because I choose his offer better than yours because of this. So there's a little bit in between the lines that we have to like figure out why God chooses that. And people are saying that maybe there was a better offering, right? He chose it because maybe this is what I really want, not over yours. But God says after that, and he says this throughout the Bible for other stories, is like, why are you angry? Like, why does it matter either way? I could choose what I want to choose. You shouldn't be angry at that. You have to learn how to deal with whatever has happened, maybe against you, but has happened in the situation. And I think there's some truth there. There's some things that we have to learn through those stories.
One of the things.
Hold me accountable to the next two answers, because I have an answer for the favor thing, and I have an answer to the why you don't know why he killed. Here. I think that the favor to one and not favor to the other and not knowing why is the most human experience we can have. It's Job told all over again, except in 3 sentences instead of 30 chapters. Why was one accepted over the other? Who knows?
Right.
Why? I shouldn't use the word accepted. That would be incorrect. Favored. Why was one quote unquote favored? He doesn't say that one was, cursed. He says one was favored and one wasn't. It was still accepted. He still loved him. He still cared for him. He still had a life. He still had a career. He still had his family. But he wasn't quote unquote favored. This is where, again, this is the most natural thing that we know. We don't understand why God does things. We go through good situations. We get favored. We get unfavored. People get favored over us. And we have reactions to that. I mean, this is that part of the story to me sets up Job later. As we get into Job, technically speaking, Job was written first, but maybe it's a callback to Job if that's the case. But I love that fact because this is the most human experience. I don't know why one person is favored and another is not.
Right.
I don't know why I did everything I was supposed to and am not feeling quote unquote favored. I don't know. And this story requires that it's not that clear, because when it's not that clear, I'm allowed to read myself into the situation. I think that's super intentional. Now, the later part, the second answer of, why did he kill? Again, I don't think it's about why. I think it's about the feeling. What was he feeling? What did he do about that feeling, and why, and how did that feeling end up affecting him? And again, so I think that this ambiguity in the story is incredibly intentional, and I think it's incredibly powerful, because if you said he killed him because of a woman that he loved and that's why he did it, well, all other things are off the table for me to put myself in that situation. Well, as long as I'm not going to like kill somebody for not loving them, or not loving, having a woman that I love, then I'm not associated with that story. The ambiguity allows me to insert myself, insert my situation, insert my problem, and to still see myself and go, whoa, warning signs.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
I'll go even a step further, and this is kind of getting a little bit deep, and this is my preface. This is my thought on it. Adam and Eve ate of the tree of knowledge, and God did not want them to have that knowledge at that point. What God did next generation is, I'm going to teach you something. And what I think he was teaching was, one was more desirable than the other because one was a blood sacrifice of an animal, the other was crops. And all he's doing is teaching. So he goes from here, you're getting all the knowledge for yourself, and you're wrong. Here I'm teaching you, and you're also acting out on that. I think it's also about us, again, trying to be godlike. I want the answers. I want to know what pleases you, what doesn't. I want to know all these things right away. And sometimes God's just teaching a lesson. And I think that in this lesson, unfortunately, at that point, Cain wasn't there to learn. He was there to be equal or greater than, and that was it. And I think that the lesson that God teaches us day by day, if we bring it into today's day, there are a lot of us that, yes, Javi, you're right. Maybe we're not going to go out and murder somebody at work who's getting, recognized for something that we're like, I've been doing that for 3 years. Why are you recognized doing it once? I might not go right to murder, but we definitely have that feeling inside of like, it's no longer I'm doing the right thing and should hold fast to it. It's you're now doing the wrong thing and I'm angry at you. And that's the point where I think God, like you said, Jason, I think it's great because it's not just about a woman or anything else. This is the general human condition. And boy, do we need a lot of lessons on that.
I was going to say,
go ahead.
Now I have to be honest too. Hebrews does talk about this. Hebrews 11:4 says, by faith, Abel brought God a better offering than Cain did. By faith, he was commended as righteous when God spoke well of his offerings. So the Bible does talk about this situation and why maybe God chose Abel's offering over Cain's. And they're saying that it was just a better offering. Like you're saying right now, like the blood offering is just a better offering than maybe crops.
Maybe.
It's tough to hear, but yeah.
But I think there's, again, sometimes the Bible is also literal. It's also figurative as much as literal. It's also literary as well as literal. And in this case, think about it. What's one of the greatest sacrifices that's going to come in the future that's going to end up resolving all things? I mean, so maybe it's just simple, like, hey, you give what you have, but it's just a little nod. It's that it's the sacrifice of the shepherd that's going to ultimately be the one that I favor most. Not because the other one sucks, not because the other one's bad, not because the other one's not good, but I'm just giving you a little bit of a hint, a little foreshadowing that I know, meaning God, God is saying, I know that in the future it's going to be the sacrifice of the lamb that is the one that sets you all free anyway. So just like a really, really, really early foreshadowing.
The other thing that the Bible does, and this is just, I think that this story is meant to teach a lesson, and I love it because it's not even laid out. They weren't even told this is a sacrifice you need to make. This is how you make sacrifices. We're jumping right into. I'm assuming at some point there was some sort of conversation of this is a sacrifice and how you make it. So we're also assuming that maybe one of them didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Maybe they did. There's a whole bunch of stuff we don't know. I think it all comes down to it doesn't matter if something is.
Again, it's
Yes.
super agree with that. Super agree with that. Like, we are such rational, logical creatures that we want all the variables to be
Yep.
identified so that we can understand. Like, we want a guidebook. I've been reading something lately. Like, we want a guidebook. We want something where I can go and open the page and it says, what should you do in this situation? And the reality is the Bible is not a guidebook in that way. It doesn't tell you, should I respond to this person on social media who said something dumb? Like, it doesn't tell you that. But it does, throughout the course of the Bible, give you the wisdom to know how to deal with people who are being, trolls on the internet, or it does give you the ability to, the wisdom in which you need to solve your own situations as they come, with their nuance, with their subtleties, and that's a big difference. And so it's not supposed to give you what is it's not a list, right, of what is an acceptable sacrifice and what's the level and priority of sacrificial level. I mean, we'll get into Deuteronomy later, but or Leviticus even, but technically speaking, it's just telling you, like, sometimes the message is more important than the details, right? The message is sometimes you're going to give, and it's not going to, the response isn't going to be what you think it is. That's the real thing it's telling you.
I wanted to say, just throw a wrench in there. I'm gonna throw a wrench in there. Okay. So for me, as I read it and I continue to look at it, you're saying that a blood sacrifice is better than crops in some ways, but let's look at this. Cain's job was to be a farmer, to heal the crop. Like, where I'm gonna get, maybe he could kill the animal and sacrifice that, but for him, he's the farmer. He's over the crops, and I'm taking whatever 10% or whatever I feel whatever I feel that's enough for God to give it to. Where Abel was looking over the flock, and he gave what he looked over, and that 10% he gave to, or let's just say tithe. He tithed to God. That's not fair. For me, I have whatever skills that I have, and whatever I do have is what I have to give. I don't have any blood sacrifice in a sense. So that's my argument on that. But to say, wait, I'm gonna let you guys jump in. I know you want to jump in. So but with that being said, I don't think as much as what was being offered is how much was being offered. And going back to maybe the heart issue, where it says here, and I think where we at in two or three, it says pretty much Cain gave some of his crops, where Abel was given the fat portions and the firstborn of his flock. He gave like abundantly more, you could say, where Cain was kind of maybe holding back some. And that's where it goes back to maybe the heart issue. It
could have been.
When, and that's, I say that to say for modern day, right? Like, maybe my sacrifice, I feel like, is not enough, right? Or going back to maybe a story like Jesus, and I think there was like a poor lady that only had the rest of her coins, where she gave up to the temple, where these rich men only gave a little bit. It's like, well, she gave more than they did because she gave all that she had, and that matters more than what was actually
I'm not.
I don't think you're wrong, Javi. So I don't think you're wrong at all. I mean, I think there's context clues to say those things. If you get really high level, and we used to call this the boundless Bible because there's layer on layer on layer on layer on layer. I haven't talked about the layers recently, but one of the things, when you move up to a more literal, metaphorical, up to a more metaphorical, literary, macro level scale, they are talking about things versus life. Right? It's one thing to give things. It's another thing to actually sacrifice a part of yourself. Now, granted, he's not sacrificing a part of himself, but in the Christian faith, we know that we are called to, die to our flesh and be resurrected in the spirit. We are called to die to our, human wants and needs and be reborn in the spirit. So there's a sacrifice there of ourselves in a certain sense. So it could just be sacrificial versus, product. This could be another illusion at the top level to say, I want you to give something that actually takes away from you and actually takes some fight and some harm and some blood and some sweat and some tears, and more than just to give, some shekels type thing. So I'm not saying that's true. I'm just saying it's one of the things that I think of.
What I'm hearing you saying, that you're saying it's better to give a certain specific item, where for me, I'm saying that it's better to give a bigger portion to your needs.
That's exactly what I'm saying. I'm saying it has to be something that actually sacrifices. Like it can't. If I have if I have $100,000 in my bank account right now and I give you 1,000. I don't, it's 1%
Right.
and it's not really anything. If I have $100 in the bank and I give you 10, that's more. And so
Right.
it probably affects me more. There's more of a sacrifice to be
Right.
given. It's not about the amount. It's not about the actual physical amount or even thing. Like if I
Thing,
give you, 10 bags of rice and I have 100, like it's not about that. It's like which one is actually going to be sacrificial
Yes.
to me is what I'm getting at. Which point
Right,
is
that's
going to
what I'm
hurt
saying,
me
yeah.
a little bit and shows that I'm giving from a giving heart. That's not
Yeah.
about me.
Well, that's the
being
thing.
selfish.
We're making it's either two assumptions. We're either assuming that God had told them what he's expecting from a sacrifice and they're not doing it. Well, Abel was not doing it on the same level Cain was not doing it the same
Right.
level as Abel was.
Cain was not doing it the same level
Or
as Abel.
we're assuming that they weren't told, that they're just doing a sacrifice, in which case one happens to be more acceptable to God than the other. Either one, I don't think matters. I think it is again, we want this prescription of do
Totally
this and we're going to get this. And life doesn't work that way. And I think what God's doing is, listen, whether it's one way or another, the lesson is one is less acceptable. What are you going to do about it? Is your heart nature going to be, okay, next time there's a sacrifice, I'm going to give more, or I'm going to give from a pure heart? Or is the response going to be, I'm going to kill my brother because I'm jealous? I mean, I think that regardless of what it is and how it is, this is a great story for us to, and it's funny because usually I'm the literal guy. This one, I'm really like, this is such a great story of the human nature.
Yeah. It's a
Me
great
too.
story too of God's character. I mean, we have to remember that too. I think God.
We have to get to the end of the story for that, right?
Right. God, I know we got to get there. But God he offered redemption, right? He offered Cain, hey, do not give in to sin. You have a chance to change your face, right? Change your feelings and do better next time, in a sense, right? He didn't cast him out. He didn't go, you're wrong, or killed him in some ways. He gave him a chance to go, hey, you feeling a type of way, and I get that, but there's a chance for you to redeem yourself. God is so good. He just gives us another chance every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I feel the need to put the disclaimer on all the things that we were like hypothesizing that the lack of information means. It's just hypothesizing. But I think that that's part of the like meditative nature of the Bible is that they leave these ambiguities so that you on your own time can sit and process them and say, what does this mean? And what does this mean to me in my life, in my walk, in my understanding of what it means to be human? So none of those things that we just said, I just want to call that out, are set in stone. None of them are teachings. None of them, they're just like when I sit back and maybe when Javi sits back and we think about them, these are the things that come to light. It's probably because these are things that actually are ideas in the back of our head that we're wondering about. And so the Bible's kind of revealing that. But to move forward to what you were saying, Javi, I agree. I mean, look, we have to look at the end of the story. So, once God says to Cain, like, what have you done? He says, I'm not my brother's keeper. And he says, here's the problem. We're learning so early in the Bible that when you do let that sin through that door, it's going to have penalty. And the penalty is you're going to do something really stupid. And when you do that stupid thing, I'm sorry, son, but there are consequences.
Yeah.
And I don't like to use the word cursed because I think the word cursed in our Western society has such a different meaning than it probably meant now. It means that there was a penalty. There was a simple penalty. And he says, so now you are cursed, alienated from the ground that opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood. If you work the ground, it will never again give you its yield. You shall be restless wanderer on the earth. So there is a consequence. And then Cain goes, oh my God, that's too much for me to bear. And he says, my punishment is too great to bear. Oh, I just said bear. Since you are banishing me today from the face of the earth, and I must hide from your presence and become a restless wanderer on the earth, whoever finds me will kill me. He basically does the thing like when you tell your kid, like, you're in trouble, they're like, well, I'm never coming out of my room forever, ever. I'm going to stay in my bedroom and I'm never coming out. And then God says, listen, look, don't worry. You have consequences, but it's not the end of your life. Whoever kills Cain will suffer vengeance 7 times over. And if he placed a mark on Cain, so whoever found him would not kill him. So it wasn't a deadly curse. It wasn't a deadly consequence. It was a consequence, which frankly Cain earned.
Yeah.
So, and again, take this back to that the same story of Adam and Eve that we just encountered 2 books earlier. They made a mistake. There was a curse, but he didn't send them out in the world to die. He still protected them after. And this is like the beginning of the longest pattern in the Bible, which is falls from grace and God's mercy afterwards. And his continued protection and provision of that, even though you screwed up. And there's still another chance to fix it.
I'll go even further. At that point, Cain goes to Nod. He goes east to Nod. And the symbolism of that is, first of all, Nod is not place. It is a theological place, not a literal place. And what that means is a place of wandering. He is forever wandering and homeless in his own brain. But it goes further east. And what's interesting is when Adam and Eve got kicked out of the garden, they were sent east. This is now Cain going further east. This is further away from God. I'm going further away from Eden, further away from God spiritually, and I'm going to be wandering in my own brain for the rest of my life. And I'm going, that punishment we can all understand is wandering in our own brain for life, and God offering the salvation from that. And sometimes we're just too stubborn to take it. No, I deserve it. Again, like you said, I'm punishing myself worse, and woe is me. And now he is stuck doing that for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So that to me is a far worse punishment than what God was going to give him.
Yeah, that's really bad. I think one thing to also maybe get out of this story is Cain didn't think about the consequences at all. Like, he did not think about what kind of like thing might happen after. Like, what would be his consequences?
To be fair, he was the first human. He didn't know.
Yeah, he didn't know. He just didn't think about it, because when he says, I feel like for me, he says, my punishment is more than I can bear. Like, what do you expect, Cain? Like, you lucky he didn't take your life, dude. Like,
what do you expect, Cain? That's
like, what do you expect?
Statement I've heard today.
It's like, you just killed your brother, like the 4th person in the world. You just killed. Like, there's only 4 of you guys.
Yeah.
Like, there was a comedian that I was watching. He kind of mentioned this story, and he was like, this is like the worst killing in the world. Like, this is worse than any kind of war, any kind of like dictator, or any kind of disease.
The percentage of people you killed is like 25%.
Right.
You killed 25% of the world.
You killed 25% of the world's population.
Yeah.
Like, so it was kind of funny to see that. But
look,
I don't know.
I go back to that nod. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No. I just wanted to say that, like, I think when we think about doing certain things, we just think about eradicating what's bothering us, and we don't realize the consequences, what might happen after, right? We don't think about the courtrooms or think about the sentencing that we might be facing when we do certain things. And that could be worse shock, a worse thing in the world, or even to your world, that we don't think about, but we could hurt our families, we could hurt our friends, our family, right? Anything else within our life when we do certain things. I just want to say that.
I'll tell you again, I think there's such a valuable lesson this early in the Bible, and the nod thing is what like sent it off. I just had this conversation maybe 40 minutes ago with somebody else, which is, you said, David, you go into the land of Nod, which is basically being stuck in your head in your wilderness, right? And you're by yourself, and it's a solo, singular thing. I was reading a psychological study this week that said that the quickest way to become completely depressed, psychopathic, and capable of horribly monstrous things like he's doing, is to get in your head and stay there by yourself. Just by yourself, thinking about and lamenting over all of your troubles, and being crushed by the weight of your own past and things like this. And this is the human condition. When we spend our time focused, and look how many times God gave Cain the opportunity not to do it. He said, look, you're in your feelings right now. You're letting yourself, be absorbed by this evil instead of letting it go, because that sin is sitting on your door waiting for you. You open that door and it's over. And it was. And then he screwed up, and then he did the bad thing, and now it comes on it again. And he's saying, like, the way that Cain had to get out of that place is by yielding to God. He needed to accept that it wasn't about him, that it was about more than him. I mean, frankly, one of the reasons he did it in the first place, that he would have killed his brothers, would have been out of jealousy, which is an egotistical thing. It's like, I like me more than I like you. I feel like I deserve this more than you deserve this. So this whole story at a higher level is about people being egotistical, being shallow, being selfish, and doing only things for themselves. And anybody who has lived a life outside of Christianity and lived it for themselves, or even within Christianity and done it for themselves, realizes how not crazy this story is. It's very easy to lose track of what's right and what's wrong when you're the only guidepost.
There's a book, it's not canon, it's called Sanhedrin 4:5. And in Sanhedrin 4:5, it actually talks about Abel and his blood crying out, and the blood of his descendants crying out forever. And when you read it, you go, okay, what does that mean, that his blood is crying out and his descendants' blood crying out? And I think that this atrocity is one of those things that when you look at Cain living within himself, that blood is crying out to him forever. The guilt, the shame that he feels is there forever. And then all the descendants, this is, again, they're brand new to the world. They're learning about how things work. And, this is not canon. This is somebody else's thoughts of what's going on. But the thought is, God is entering into the world the thought of guilt and shame of when you do something wrong, you can repent. I'm asking you, come to me, repent, and it'll be better. It's not going to go away, but it'll be better. Or you can make the choice of having the blood cry out to you forever. And that torture of shame and guilt really does. I mean, I personally can't think of something worse than to disappoint and have the guilt, on me for my family. So it's something, again, not canon, but just a nod to some Jewish scholars who, same thing. They talked about this the way we are, and they jumped in. They go, what are we supposed to learn about this, and how are we supposed to change who we are as free will in the future to make sure that we don't become Cain?
Yeah. I mean, I love that. I'm just trying to even wrap it up in my own head. Like, what is the practical takeaway for me? And I think it's if there's something in your past that is crying out to you, that either you have done and are not forgiving yourself, or that you have done to somebody else and they're not forgiving you, or even that they did something to you and you're not forgiving them. Any way that goes, right? The blood cries out of that person, whether it's your own blood, their blood, or other blood. It's crying out to you, and you realize that you want to wash it clean. That's where God comes. That's where God comes, and that's where ultimately Jesus comes. Is that you have to, only God can wipe away that stain.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah,
Cain and Abel. Cain and Abel. Who knew it was going to go there? Who knew it was going to go there?
I love
so the first two born humans, and that conversation gets much more interesting if you keep reading past 4 too. So I suggest that anybody picks this up, reads the story, and continues reading to see how it continues. But as always, an enlightening conversation, gentlemen. Thank you so much. And for those who listen, we always appreciate. We know there's so many other things you could be doing, and instead you're listening to us. So we appreciate that. We know how much that time means to you, and we appreciate that we're a part of it. So thank you for your time. We will talk to you again next week, and
Bye.
See you later.
See you guys. Were you silent when you first start?
Hold on, let's make sure the zeros are not
Let
zeros.
me just skin this cat real quick.
And it uploaded right when you said that. All right, we can start like this. You ready? We're going to start with... That's how we'll start. All right.